The New English Empire. The worldwide spread of English is remarkable. There has been nothing like it in history. Spanish and French, Arabic and Turkish, Latin and Greek have served their turn as international languages in the wake of mission station, the trading post of garrison, but none has come near to revering English. 400 years ago, English was the mother tongue of 7 million speakers tucked away on a foggy island in West Europe. Today, about 330 million people throughout the world speak it as a mother tongue. That leaves it a distant second to Guoyu, which is estimated to have 750 million speakers. But in international devotion and exception, English is in a class of its own. Added to its 330 million mother tongue speakers, the same number using English as a second language, and the same number again with reasonable competence in English as a foreign language, and you can approach 1 million English speakers. As an official English serves more than 40 countries. French serves 27, Arabic 21, and Spanish 20. English, the language of international shipping and air travel, is one of the two working languages of the United Nations, and has become the language of both international young culture and science. At the best, its appeal is irresistible. Advance in civil or diplomatic service almost everywhere will be aided by grasp of English. Preliminary trade negotiations between a Hungarian and a Kuwaiti will probably be conducted in English. Half of all foreign language courses in the Soviet Union are English courses. A quarter of Chinese 1 billion people is engaged in studying English in one way or other. English, then, is a world language. What benefits for that role is chiefly, of course, thanks to the power of Britain in the 19th century and America in the 20th. English has spread far beyond its sphere of political influence in a way that French and Spanish have not. Luckily, English fits its role well, thanks to the structure of the language. English is relatively easy to pronounce, as few of the tongue-nodding consonant closures of Russian or the stable tongue shifts of Chinese. The basic syntax is fairly straightforward too. Words can be readily isolated. English and then are relatively stable. English displaced long ago with informal vocatives and with the gender system that most other European languages rejoice in and most students of them despair at. The Roman alphabet is supple and economical. The problem is spelling, which for historical reasons is out of kilter with pronunciation. Of it can be pronounced in at least 7 different ways. A huge vocabulary on the other hand is not drawn back to its use as a world language. Though many people have thought to disqualify it on that ground, no one needs Shakespeare's command of the language for everyday communication. A more adapted speaker can always adjust his literature to suit the less adapted. English, in short, is easy to speak badly and is all this required of a world language. If what you mean by a world language is an attuned code, a means of transmitting and receiving simple information. English, the official language of the European Free Trade Association, composed of 6 countries, none of which has English as a mother tongue. Secretary General said, "Use English means we don't talk too much since none of us know the new truth." As a means of more complex social exchange, however, English on the face of less well suited to being a true world language. Here, its vast vocabulary does become to provide a formidable obstacle. Idioms confront the learners with their opacity. English is particularly well endowed with idioms: a dark horse of a different color, hold your horse, and from the horse mouth. English has the added irritation of a plethora of phrasal and propositional verbs. Put someone down, put someone up, put up with someone, put something up to something. Such simple phrases are much harder for students to grasp than corresponding advanced vocabulary. More recognized still is idiom itself, the deep, sometimes unanswerable determinants of natural construction and usage. What is acceptable to say your success provided you prepare sufficiently, but not your fear provided that you prepare insufficiently? Why do people say a very affected lady, much affected by your kindness and greatly affected by a changing treasure? Why should I haven't got a clue means I don't know, but you haven't got a clue means you're a fool? Even in England, standard English has always been a well on the way true. The language of South East England began to acquire its procedures in Churchill's time, and by the early days of the BBC was well established that the job of a radio announcer was close to anyone whose accent was regional or not upper middle class. But many linguists now reject the notion of a blank, uncountable non-English with its suggestion of relatively Hungarian language. Use instead the unlovely term Englishes, which in fact changes that very notion of an ideal English to code. English are Prudence and Cribbles. Prudence are makeshift. They start an elementary system of a combination between traders, explorers, or soldiers and suppliers, guard or slaves. Outside language, the base language usually contributes 80% or more of the vocabulary, often in distorted form. Pidgin itself probably began life in a Pidgin English word for business, hence of the expression that is my picture. Sentence and the pronunciation often simplified by constraint of the local vernacular. A Creole is a printing that has become a mother tongue and developed into a sophisticated and well-equipped language. The main full-fledged English Creoles are Old Creole in Jamaica, Creole in Sierra Leone, and Toco-speaking in Panigua. English Puritans and Creoles fall in two families: Atlantics in West Africa, the Caribbean, and parts of Nicaragua, Florida, and Georgia, and the Pacific spoken by Australian-Orient in New Jersey and other Pacific islands, and formerly along the coast of China. Educated Creole speakers can shift back and forth along kind of linguistic spectrum stretched to standard English. The shift is mimicked by communication as a whole. If the experience of Black American English during the 19th centuries is anything to go by, all Creole speakers may be drifting towards standard English. EFL is a big business. American universities offer PhDs in the teaching of it. In Britain, it earns dollars of foreign currency and goodwill. There's a quiet war going on between Britain and America over the international EFL market, with Australia increased share of EFL teaching. The promise China has fallen to Britain. The BBC Follow Me is probably the most widely followed teacher courses in history. The most lucrative market, Western Europe, seems to be changing from British to American. The countries of Latin America keep pace with American variety. Even the parity expression is swimming away from its traditional preference for British English. That old man always, Argentina. It's impossible to be sure how many foreigners know English. 230 million is a convenient speculation. The reason is that linguistic spectrum is wider in EFL than in any other kind of English. One end line examines on intangibility of a soul in Sailor or São Paulo, at the other the accented particular fruits of teacher from Tenerife or Turin. English as a second language. This is the English of the Commonwealth, the Philippines, Pakistan, and of American, Hispanic, Quebec, Black, South Africa, Frankness, and so on. ESL is usually modern on British English rather than American. The Philippines is the main exception. Liberia and Sierra Leone are partial exceptions. English acts as an instrument of national unity, a relatively neutral lingua franca. Tribal rivals can be allied more easily when neighboring people, Hassas, Yorubas, and Lobos, for instance, can speak the same language. Understand? Read understanding. And the sunset on the British Empire, each new independent country has to commit itself to an official language. English was usually entrenched as the language of education, the law, and the civil service. Sometimes it could be engaged, as in Tanzania by Sweden, and in Pakistan by Urdu. But such age-out has not proved easy. Malaysia imposed Bahasa Malaysia as a national language in the 1960s. Not only were these undoubtedly fairness to the Chinese and the Tamil minorities, but also meant that young Malays educated in Bahasa Malaysia to secondary school and beyond are finding it hard to get a place at English-speaking university abroad. Indian, with dozens or more man-induced language and more than 150 languages in all, resolving at independence to establish Hindu as its sole official language. By 1965, Hindi is the mother tongue of about a third of the population. But in 1965, the government considered English should, for the time being, remain associated official language. Professional advancement and the social prestige among middle-class urban Indians still depend on skills in English. In the southern states where the indigenous language are irrelevant to Hindu, many people are reluctant to learn the northernmost tongue when it's more useful to learn English. Indian English shows how one variety of the language can take on a life of its own while still remaining comprehensible to speakers of standard English. Just as Australia, with its robust cultural self-confidence, has ceased to look over its linguist shoulders at London, so India can now fairly lay claim to possessing a separate English. Indian English occurred in writing, not just in speech, might be adopted even by authors accustomed to writing standard British English. The influence of Indian English is felt beyond an English subcontinent. Foreign students studying at Indian college take it home with them. Thousands of Indian teachers elsewhere in Asia and in Africa spread abroad. Schools and college texts are written in Indian English. They are even sometimes translated into Indian English from British and American English. This place equivalent on behalf of English claimed to be a true international language, not just the national language used internationally. English as a mother tongue. A scholar might say, "Will I write a letter of complaint?" Where an Englishman or Northern American would say, "Should I write a letter of complaint?" Scholars also, like South Africans, may say, "Where do you stay?" when asked, "Where are you living?" A Miami Beach related if she ever occasion prefer a hot water bottle might call it cold water bottle. A cold shop assistant calls it a water bowl. Cornishment and the Newfoundlanders speak of farmers as farmers. The borders that divide in mother tongue English lie between British and American English. There is systematic difference of spelling, of pronunciation. There are morphological differences. Above all, there are lexual and idiomatical differences. These are straightforward enough, but the same word may have different meaning on different sides of the Atlantic. Or a word or phrase may have a common transatlantic meaning, but have an additional sense in one variety that is lacked in others. In British English, majority that serves for a relative majority as well as for an absolute majority. In American English, it means only absolute majority. A relative majority is a plurality. This asymmetry is best demonstrated by words or phrases that have suffered semantic taints on one side of Atlantic but not on the other. A rubber referent eraser in British English. In American English, to a condom. American sociological study called Women on the Job has to be retitled with published in Britain. Such differences take only a little application to identify and remember, but other subtitles are hard to master, even to define. Wild dicks about two great countries divided by a common language apply most to twin-light zone. Two examples must suffice both tentative. First, the register of the word toilet is seen to have a coastal ring to American English. Second, the size of pound in English. If British English, any pool of water wider than about 40 yards would probably be called lake. American English, on the other hand, provide much larger ponds. Notes Webster H.L. Macaulay both thought that British and American English were diverging. They may have been true one, but it's no longer. The change can be chosen by comparing the variety of vocabularies to do with communication. Before 1776, sailing terms was almost identical in both American and British English. In the 19th and early 20th century, upon the assertion of linguistic independence, American English chose to go its own way. There's a difference in railroad vocabulary and in motor car automobile terms, but technical vocabularies are coming together again. Aerospace terminology has fewer transatlantic variety than that of motor cars. Computer terminology shows hardly any difference at all. American program and disk has outscaled a British traditional program and disk. The current convergence of British and American English is mainly the result of British adoption of American usage. American pronunciation of suit, look, and absolute has almost altered the traditional standard English pronunciation with Y sound after the S. In vocabulary and meaning, too, American English called the shorts. The American sense of billions has been widely adopted in Britain. Many Americans imported to Britain has been quietly absorbed. Teenage babysit, commuter, striptease, brainwash, streamline, leverage backwards, flag out, hand, quarter. Called show, even stiff up lips seem to be American in origin. Although most transatlantic linkages traffic runs eastward, central heating and weekend crossed the Atlantic from east to west before 1900. It has been followed by miniskirt opposite Dan Brown, hovercraft, the establishment smog, Britain dream, a brain dream, and probably gay in sense of homosexual. Mr. Robert Bromfield, who recently retired as chief editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, once suggested that the varieties of English might one day become separate language, just as Latin after the fall of the Roman Empire broke into French, Italian, Spanish, and so on. Almost 100 years before Mr. Bertrand, another language scholar, Harriswood wrote, "In other centuries, England, America, and Australia will be speaking mutually unintelligible languages. Such a divergence did not occur then because though communications were slow in these days, language changed slowly too. Such a divergence is not likely to take place in the next 100 years because though language is changing fast today, so are communications, and hence mutual linguistic influences. True, a few new dialects might develop to join the ranks of English scholars, but any intangible to most mainstream English speakers. British and American English are never like become indistinguishable distinguishable, but they are never likely to become mutually unintelligible either. Indian English was remain widely comprehensive elsewhere, precisely because of its international intelligibility that English is so earnestly quoted by governments and citizens alike. This does not mean English is in the process of unbundling the Tower of Babel and the extreme improvement of universal language ones. Equation lies and Babel flourish as much in communities united by one language as they do in those divided by two. Nor is English replacing other languages and as opponents of its spread affair. For the most part is supplementing them, allowing strangers to talk to each other. A more temperature and useful role this and one that English fulfills credible and desirable in all its variety of variety.